Well, good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Ruby Says live. I'm just so excited because we're going into the fall season. Fall is one of my most favorite seasons. And the reason it's my favorite season is that even though I was born in January, I don't like cold. And even though I love the water and hanging out by the water, I don't like really hot. So winter and summer are probably my least favorite seasons if I had to choose. Fall is my most favorite, and spring is my second most favorite. Now, a lot of people you hear say that spring is their most favorite because that's the time that the flowers start growing and all of those other things. But for me, fall, autumn is the favorite because that's my time to wind down. That's my time to just kind of reevaluate things. For those that are in business, we know that we are going into the fourth quarter of the business year, and which is October, November, December. Ironically, before I got on the live, I was on a fourth quarter blueprint. Every quarter, I take the opportunity to sit down with a whole bunch of other people and we reevaluate our goals. We talk about those things that went well in our business. We talk about 5 wins for the quarter. We talk about challenges for the quarter. And we look at 6 principles in our business and we reevaluate those things that we want to change for the next quarter. And so, what does that have to do with what we're talking about today? Today, we're talking about maximization and we're talking about organized chaos, right? And so, as I started thinking about organized chaos, I was thinking about a dear friend of mine, Greg Young, who used to be my manager when I worked at DCFS many years ago. And Greg was, now I'm probably going to get in trouble when I say this, but Greg was probably the best manager, supervisor, administrator I have ever had in life. And let me tell you why I say that. Because Greg helped me to form my management style. Greg was professional. He was empathic. He cared about us as people before he cared about the work. And I don't know, Greg may even be watching this, but one of the things that I loved about Greg is that you would walk into his office and it would look like mass chaos. He would have stacks of paper here, stacks of paper there. He would have stuff all over his desk. But if you ask Greg, well, Greg, where's the such and such report? He would know how to go right to it. He would say, oh, it's right here. He would pick it up and hand it right to you. And this was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that was the very first time that I recognized the value of organized chaos. To me, walking in, a person who always wants their desk to be organized and clear and everything to be in files and in binders. And I'm still like that. That's the perfectionist in me. I had at one point started saying that I'm a reformed perfectionist, but I do digress. But the point is this: it doesn't matter what your organizational system is, whether it looks cluttered and chaotic to somebody else, or whether everything is in neat binders. The important thing is to make sure that you have a system. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about maximization. And of course, maximization means getting the most out of less. And we're also going to talk about organized chaos. And so let me ask you a couple of questions. And this is going to be really, really key to some of our business people that watch our lives. Hey, Ann. Good morning, Ann Mooney. This is Ann Mooney from Skinny Minnie. I'm not sure who else is watching, but I just happen to see her watching. But the first question that I want to ask you is, wouldn't you really like to increase everything good in your life? Those things that are good, it feels good, it looks good, it tastes good, and you always want more of what's good. Now, maybe I'm the only one, but when I'm eating a piece of something and it's really tasting good to me, sometimes I may have to go back and get seconds. My husband is the master fried chicken maker. And because I'm on a fitness journey, I try to eliminate or minimize the fried foods that I eat. But let me tell you something. When my husband make fried chicken, I guarantee you I'm probably going back for a second piece. So, wouldn't you like to increase everything good in your life? Life really is about a series of decisions and experiences. When I experienced that fried chicken, I have to make a quality decision. Is my waistline in line with that experience, or do I want to make a different decision? But sometimes I want more. We should want to increase everything that's good in our life. But don't you know that everything that's good may not always show up right away? So let me ask you the next question. Where are you focusing your attention? Now, I wrote this before I got on the fourth quarter blueprint this morning. And ironically, we were talking about that. Where are you focusing your attention? Are you focusing your attention on those things that are not going well in your life? Those things that are causing you a little angst? Those things that may not be giving you the best return at this time? If that's where your focus is, let me invite you to number one, determine what's most important. Is what's most important to you right now making a lot more money? Yes, we all want to make more money. Trust me, we do all want. That's one of the goals that I have on my fourth quarter blueprint. How can I streamline things? How can I use my own advice that I've been giving out in my newsletters and my lives? How can I do those things to maximize my impact? One of the things that my coach said this morning on the blueprint is, he says, stop selling and make your ideal customer your hero. What does that mean? What's most important? Now, to me, what's most important to me is making sure that my clients or those people that I work with and that I partner with always have the best experience and that they meet their goals. That's my goal. I have often taken on clients pro bono because I became so invested in their passion and what they wanted that I said, you know what? Let me gift you this product because I want you to be able to reach your goals so that when the opportunity comes back around, you can pay it forward to somebody else. But the other thing that I find that's most important is that we have to make sure that we are being present in the moment. We can't put more into one area and not balance it out by putting more in or putting something into other areas. Um, I think I mentioned last time on the live when I was working my full-time job years ago before I left to become fully self-employed. I was leaving home at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was getting to work by 7 o'clock in the morning. I was working until 4 or 5 o'clock. I was coming home and I was falling asleep with a laptop on my lap. I was doing that 5 days a week. And it got to a point where my husband said, "Where's my wife?" My children were saying, "Mama, do you have to work all the time?" I realized I had lost my focus. I had forgotten what was most important to me. My family is most important. And many of you all know I used to work for Children and Family Services. If my children and my family don't become the most important thing in my life, I can't service anybody else's children and families. In other words, I have to do what I encourage my clients to do. I had to put the oxygen mask on myself first before I tried to put an oxygen mask on someone else. So that's my number one point. Find out what's most important to you. Number two, change your perspective. And that really does go right along with finding out what's most important. If you're complaining about everything, if nothing ever seems to go right, and yes, I did do that in air quotes because things aren't always the way they seem. I have a saying, and I'm honest that I did not coin it, but I say it all the time. Either you learn or you grow. So sometimes when things are not going right for me, I have to sit back and change or when they seem to not be going right, I have to sit back and say, what do I learn from this? How do I make the adjustment so that what doesn't feel right or what doesn't seem to be going right can shift? And I can see it differently and know what's most important. The third thing that I want to tell you that also goes in line with changing your perspective. Never make an emotional decision. That is the worst thing that we could ever do in life. When we're upset about something, when we're challenged with something, when we're not in the right headspace, the worst thing we could ever do is make a decision at that point. I was having a conversation with my husband last night, and I just said, hey, I have a dilemma. And so I explained the dilemma to him. And the one thing he said to me is, if you're having that difficult of a time making a decision, then I'm sorry, my diffuser was bringing smoke and bringing this sexy look onto my life. Had to shift my diffuser around. But he said, if you're having that difficult of time making a decision, don't make a decision yet. Now, was that rocket science? No, but it was a reminder. And so I want to remind you that when things are emotional for you, or when you're kind of in a difficult or different place, take the time to give yourself some grace and not make a decision at that point, because that leads me right into to item number 4 is things are not always going to be perfect. We have to make sure that in our imperfection, that we don't become so perfectionistic that we create more chaos for ourselves. One of the things that I learned when I was having children is that my house was not going to always be perfect. I wanted to be the Martha Stewart of 40-year-old women having children. I had my second child when I was 41, my third child when I was 43, and my fourth child when I was 44. I'm sorry, 45. And so, as a working professional, as someone who was working on a doctorate degree, as someone who was advancing in years, and as someone who was very, very involved in ministry, I had to recognize that my house was not going to be picture perfect all the time. I had begun to run myself crazy trying to make sure that before I left home in the morning to go to work, that my house was perfect. That when I came home and the children had things all over the place, that I was picking things up before I went to bed or before I got into my next phase of work. And one of my, she happened to be my babysitter. She came by the house one day and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just trying to clean up." And at that time, my youngest child was, he was months old. He was probably a couple of months old. And I had just started another phase of my doctorate program. She said, "Stop, rest. What harm is having a few toys on the floor doing? Your house is not going to always be perfect. While your children are resting, you should be resting." That was rocket science to me, because I thought that while they were resting, that I should be working. I should be getting things done. But I had to recognize that things were not always going to be perfect. Take that and apply it to other areas of your life. The fifth thing that I want to admonish you and encourage you to do. Now, most of you all know that I'm a woman of faith. The thing that I say, and this is what I subscribe to, especially when things get harried in my life, is that I have to make the decision to pray more and worry less. If I'm going to worry, why should I take the time to pray? But if I'm going to pray, why should I worry? Why should I spend my energy worrying? Because when I pray and pray in faith that God is going to answer whatever I pray about, then that gives me the opportunity to trust him more. And then the last thing that I want to tell you is to be still. Take the time to be still. Exhale, inhale, and experience life around you. Don't miss out on life. Life is meant to be lived fully. That means working as hard as you play, but certainly playing as hard as you work. Maximize the time that you have and make sure that while you're being present in the moment, take the time to be fully present. When you're with your children or with your friends, put your phone aside. Take the time to be fully engaged in the conversation. If you are watching movies together, if you're tossing a football or whatever it is that you're doing, be fully there and divorce yourself from all of the other things that are important, but not important in that moment. Take the time to fully engage. This is what Dr. Ruby says on this 16th day of September as we go into fall. Take the time to be fully engaged. Reevaluate those things that are most important to you, and take the time to recognize that everything won't be perfect, but everything will be possible. And if you would like to subscribe to Dr. Ruby, to my Dr. Ruby newsletter, you can go to www.rubyepow.com. If you would like to hear some strategies on how to maximize your chaos and organize your chaos, book a free consultation with me. It's a no obligation consultation. That's why it's called free, free.com. 30 minutes of your time is worth getting some strategies for the next phase of your life. This is Dr. Ruby Says, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Love and blessings to you.